Welcome once again to 720 and 720. This is John Schulman, and once again we have a very unique guest. And remember, these podcasts are here to hopefully help players and coaches and maybe even some parents and fans today, because we have a Final Four, NCAA Final Four official. Mike, are you supposed to say referee or official? What are you?
Either's fine.
Either's fine. This is Mike Stuart from Maryville, Tennessee, one of the highest level basketball officials in the NCAA, and he's done officiating right now, so that's why we can talk to him. Mike, welcome to 720 and 720.
Thanks, Coach.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. Everything's good.
Are you missing blowing that whistle?
You know, it was a wonderful run, 29 years. At the Division I level, and I think, like a lot of things, maybe I'm one of the last of the dinosaurs. Maybe little too old school for today. you just kind of know when your times come. You know, whether it's banking, coaching, refereeing, etc. I think at some point in time, you just know it's time, and you know, as you get a little age, you tend to be a little more injury prone. I had some other things that I like to do, and I thought, you know, maybe it's a good idea to walk away while I still can, as opposed to stay too long and limp away.
No, I understand. 29 years, long time.
That's a long run, you know.
How did you get into it 29 years ago? Well, because it's different now. How you get into it?
It is somewhat different. You know, when I first started. Right out of high school, I started officiating in the recreation and parks, the summer softball leagues, little league baseball, minor league baseball, whatever, and and kind of moved over into recreational games to make a little spending money while I was going to school. And you know, with that, you have a chance sometimes. You catch somebody's eye, and you kind of work your way on into elementary school, junior high, JV, and so on. And I was fortunate to be around some wonderful teachers and mentors from East Tennessee. Was
Ralph Stout one of them?
Ralph Stout was one of them. Ralph Stout hired me and gave me my shot in 1988 in Ohio Valley. Yeah. After watching me some through my high school career, a grand gentleman out of Knoxville, Joe Caldwell. You know Joe? Remember Joe?
No, listen. I'm an East Tennessee redneck. Listen. You all think Knoxville is East Tennessee. Y'all don't understand that. Knoxville is like Middle Tennessee. East Tennessee, that's God's country, Mike.
You're right.
And that is Johnson City, Kingsport, Bristol, Elizabethton, and Irwin. Morristown's on the border, but East Tennessee is up there. When Ralph Stout walked into a game, and I was either playing or coaching up there, it was like God walked in. I mean, he was that important up there.
He was one of the great referees of all times. One of the top rules men in college basketball during his career and his time as a supervisor. Worked closely with the NCAA, and if you've ever been around him, walk in the dressing room for a game. You know, officials supposed to be there about an hour and a half before, and Ralph be sitting there on the bench reading his rule book, and he's been there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
That's just how devoted
he was a professional guy.
Yeah, he really was.
So how did you get? So you went from straight high school officiating in high school to the OVC.
Well, I went to from high school. Here worked with Kenny Coulter and his group in Knox South, they called it, and then mentioned Joe Caldwell. Joe was over the NAIA and the JUCO leagues in Tennessee. You know, from especially East Tennessee. So Kenny and Joe had a great relationship, and based on Kenny's recommendation and Joe's assessment from time to time and seeing some games. I got a chance there, and it was probably at that point that I realized that the camps, the officials' camps, were going to be a necessity to pursue a career in officiating. Okay, and I started around 1986 or so in the camps. Started with Dale Kelly's camp. Dale's from
Yep.
Huntington, Tennessee. Was an SEC basketball official and for years, and a supervisor of officials in the Big 12 conference, probably even all the way back to I think they called it the Big Eight at one time. But Dale ran the camps in Cookeville at Tennessee Tech, so I started there.
Well,
And
just so people understand, Mike, when you say camps, you're talking about like Tennessee Tech's running their basketball camp, their team camp, and
That's correct.
and they hired Dale to run their officials camp at the same time. So
that's correct.
yeah, so as you're running your team camp, you had an officials camp going on at the same time, and you're getting evaluated just like those kids are at an exposure camp.
Exactly, and they go hand in hand because the team camp's got to have officials, and supervisors have to have games to work, and they just work great together. We're living in the dorms and eating in the cafeteria just like just like the kids are. So,
I would actually love to see some of you guys living in a dorm, and I mean that would actually make my day. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry, just keep going.
All right, we've been there nonetheless. I started that. I started that camp and was fortunate to catch the eye of a grand gentleman who had a major impact on my life, and John Guthrie,
Yep.
who was former basketball coach at the University of Georgia, and later became associate commissioner of the SEC and the supervisor of officials. And from there, I kind of worked through Dale's camp for a bit and migrated over to John Guthrie's camp, who held a big camp up in Rensselaer, Indiana.
Yep.
I guess that's the heart of basketball. So we're right in the middle of the cornfields in Rensselaer, Indiana, in July, and it's 100 degrees, and we're in gyms with no air conditioning and living in the dorms again. So, through that, we progressed and on into other camps. I did some camps in Vegas, did some camps up in New York, and so on. And it's kind of like working your way from junior high to high school to NAIA, etc. You're working your way through the camps, and the key is going where the players are. To really find out. I mean, if you got a group of high school teams, that's great, okay. But then you kind of work your way on up into the AAU teams, where in the tournaments and the camps where they have the they have the better players. So the supervisors can evaluate your talent with better players because they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, and I think so they continue to separate those that can from those that can't, and those that have the feel and maybe some natural ability to understand what's going on and make that quick reaction.
Well, the speed of the game, the speed of the game changes. And so you're doing I always thought I could be a great official. Actually, I tried for 32 years while I was coaching to officiate at the same time. Very difficult to do.
You weren't bad.
I wasn't great. But I would say it's kind of like a player. A player has to adjust from being a high school player to college, and we talk about the speed of the game. When the game slows down, the kid can really play in college. And I'm assuming for an official, once you got up there, the game's really fast, and then after a little bit, the game slowed down, and it became easy for you.
It does. You're right, and you get the feel for it, and the contact and the strength of the players, and it does, and that's the whole deal. Is when you can, if you're a player, when you can play fast, slow. Yep. An official when you can see fast, slow, and understand what's going on. So officials are very much, in a lot of ways, what happens to them on a nightly basis is kind of what happens to players a lot of times. And some nights players are great. They're in the zone, they're making all the shots. They're getting all the rebounds. They're doing making the assist. Everything's working great. Some nights as referees, every step you take, you got a great wide open look, and you're really pretty good. And I think the wide open look and getting in the right position is the key to officiating. Once you establish that you have the talent to call the plays. Some nights seems like you take the wrong step every time, and there's somebody between you and in the play, or you just don't get a look, and you kind of scratch your head sometimes and say, man, what's going on? But at the end of the day, the good ones or the great ones, players, referees, coaches, or whatever, they're pretty doggone good every night, even though, whether they're getting 30 or 20, or whether they're getting 95% of the calls right or 93, they're still pretty good every night.
Well, I think coaches like players who are consistent and have consistent effort every night. You're going to have tough nights, but if your effort's great every night, coaches enjoy coaching those players. Coaches enjoy officials who bring it every night. And the best thing, and here in a second, Mike, we're going to try to help young coaches and coaches in general how to communicate with officials. But the best thing, I'm just going to tell you, I'm yelling at an official about something, and the guy comes over and communicates with me. The official comes over and says, listen, I may miss that. I don't know, Coach, if you've ever missed anything or called something poorly or run the wrong play. We're all humans out there. And fans and coaches don't think officials are human. And with all the instant replay, and I'll ask you about that, and, it's becoming a non-human game because everything's got to be perfect. But last time I checked, you were human, correct? And you do screw up like everybody else.
Absolutely.
Even if you wear the stripes, you screw up.
Almost every night.
Every night.
Sooner or later, like I say, we were always shooting to be in the mid-90s on correct plays, and even what we call correct no calls. That's when you have some contact or something happens and you don't blow the whistle. That's judged just like blowing the whistle.
Well, let me ask you this. All right, so I'm gonna go backwards before we go forward. Your first check. I don't want you to get too specific. Your first Division I check in the OVC, you go do whoever. TSU, or back then maybe East Tennessee State was in OVC back in the day. All right, what was your first check? You made your first college check. What was it?
$400.
$400, and you thought you were rich, probably.
I was at Murray State. I drove 5 hours to get there, 5 hours home, and lost an hour, and got $400. It was great.
And I'm assuming you probably wanted to frame that check because you had made it.
That one was great. That probably wasn't the first one I wanted to frame, but I do remember the first one I wanted to frame, and years later, when I got in the SEC, the first one I got that had, as we used to say, that had a comma in it. That was the first one that was the one you really wanted to frame.
Well, you were comma man for a long time. I will say that.
Well, it was a good run. It was a good run. It gave a poor banker a second source of income, and provided his family a lot of things that they probably would have never had on a banker's salary, for sure.
Well, if you'd gotten that much, you could have paid me a little extra to take Brett Stuart, your son, at Chattanooga. I was giving he had a better income coming in than I did.
There's no doubt I owe you. I can tell you that. You took care of him like he was yours.
Well, he was mine. I love that kid. Okay, well, let me ask you this. So you started at Murray State. And I'm assuming the peak of your career, and I know you had some high-level games, but one Monday night in April, I watched you when there was only one game going on. Was that the highlight? And for our listeners, that's the national championship basketball.
That was a national championship game, and I think it was in 2012. That was Kentucky and Kansas, and that was I think that was kind of the first year that Kentucky had all the freshmen. Anthony Davis and Gilchrist, and I'm trying to remember, but
We actually
that was
played them that year at Chattanooga, and we're down 15 with 15 to play, and I was thrilled.
You were in the game.
Yeah, we were in the game. Absolutely. If you're in a game with that bunch right there, you were doing okay.
They were amazing.
But you were on that national stage. How'd that feel?
That was the pinnacle. It's neat. I tell people sometimes when they ask, and as I said, it's really amazing to build a basketball court in the middle of a football field.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the Superdome in New Orleans, and have 80,000 people at a basketball game, and most of them are so far away. I don't even know how they even see the ball.
Most of them want to be there, and they end up watching on a jumbotron.
They do, and they have a huge jumbotron. But it's quite a spectacle. It really is. It's quite a spectacle. It comes with a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure. I can kind of remember going in, and we're believe it or not, we're almost quarantined. We fly in, they pick us up at the airport, they put us in the motel. We go to dinner as a group. We go back to the motel. We work the game. We go back to the motel, and they put us on the plane the next morning. And we leave. I think there's such a concern about all the problems, and they just don't want anybody around the officials. For a lot of obvious reasons, I guess, in today's world, but it was the pinnacle. I think that's what everybody works for, and that's the ultimate goal.
Same thing in coaching. I mean, everybody wants to be in that championship game. Same thing as officiating. Same thing as the PA guy. It really doesn't matter. Everybody wants to be in that thing, and you went from umping or officiating or like doing little league baseball games to basketball games in the Y, all the way to the Final Four. That's for an East Tennessee hick like you and me. That I remember, honest to God, this is how much I think of you. I remember watching that game, and I was nervous for you. I was like, "Come on, Mike. Come on, Mike. Come on, Mike. Let's do a great job." I was excited for you, but nervous for you. When you're nervous for people, that means you care about people.
Exactly.
And so I mean, that's how much I cared about you. I was excited for you and nervous for you. All right, here's what we're going to do. You're going to help young coaches. And listen, you've been an official forever and ever, and you've been through the wars, and you've had the greatest coaches in the world and some of the worst coaches in the world. Tell me, and let's tell young coaches, in a basketball game, what that we don't have young listeners, so what pisses off an official? What helps an official? How do I communicate with you? Help me as a basketball coach so you're not getting pissed off at me because you're human and I'm human. So how do I communicate with you?
Well, I think really the key word there is respect, and is that we treat each other respectfully. In other words, if I don't know that I've ever known an official that if the coach treats him respectfully doesn't return that respect. So to kind of set the table. Coach, the officials are charged with providing a fair and a level playing field, okay, that both teams have a chance to compete and win, whether they're at home, on the road, whatever. That's the official's job, okay? The coach, his job is to win. He don't get any contract extensions for being a good guy. He don't get any contract extensions for being a little below 500 and being a good guy, and so his job's to win. Our job is to provide a level and a fair playing field. So if you stop and think about it from that standpoint, we kind of got a conflict before we ever even get started.
Absolutely.
So if you think of that, so it's and as the game starts, and if coaches are emotional, Some are more emotional. And there's all kinds of people. You got high-strung coaches. They just seem like they're just wound up super tight. You got some that just seem very calm and collected. Officials are the same way, and I think over a course of time, we kind of got to learn. The coaches kind of got to know who that official is. It's kind of wound up, maybe a little tighter than maybe, and I say maybe aggressive or intense is probably, you got some guys that are more intense than others, and they're kind of setting on go, and then you got some that are laid back. Well, you got coaches the same way, and those don't always mix. But I think over the course of several games or several seasons, that officials ought to understand what makes that coach tick, and the coach, I've never got to give my opinion about coaches, but I say it lightly, but the coach really ought to kind of, in my opinion, ought to learn a little bit about those guys that are going to be working the majority of games. What makes them tick? Who's kind of highly intense and maybe more apt to react stronger and aggressively, and maybe who's less intense and kind of easy going. So I think we talked the other day briefly. I told you a lot of times when I was going to the game, I'm driving down the road or I'm driving from the motel, etc. I kind of got things going through my mind about who the coach is, what I know about him, what I've heard about him, and maybe even more so when I was a young official. What can I learn about that guy? What makes him tick? There are coaches that get upset if you talk to the other coach. They don't want you talking to anybody.
Coaches are paranoid, Mike. We're all paranoid.
I think
we're all
they
paranoid.
are.
Like, what are y'all talking about down there? I remember going at halftime. If an official and the other coach was talking at halftime, I was staying out there. I was going to hold my ground, and you weren't going to talk to the other coach. I want to hear what do y'all talk about?
Exactly.
No, we're all nuts.
You didn't want him getting a leg up on you.
Absolutely, and it's about that. But there's certain things I just liked officials I could like. So I'm out of it at this moment, and some of you guys are my dearest friends. Like I see Tim Gaddis and some of those guys down doing their deal, or Jamie Lucky down like running a summer camp, and my son's playing AAU. I see those guys, they're like family to me. I love those guys. Even though we competed like crazy and I probably acted like a knucklehead, but we all went through it together, and that was part of the journey. You guys are part of the journey.
Well, it is part of a journey, and it's funny. I remember when you and I got to know each other. You were sitting on Les Robinson's bench. Is that correct?
Well, Alan LaForce's bench. That was at East Tennessee State.
East Tennessee State.
Yeah.
And you were on the bench there as a young assistant coach, and it's always good is to talk to the assistant coaches. During timeouts, Coach LaForce taking care of business. You just kind of mumbling and walking around there with your clipboard trying to figure out what, but if I come by there and we develop a little relationship, then as you continue to progress and I continue to progress, hopefully we meet somewhere on a bigger stage, and we've already got a relationship, and I can talk to you and you can talk to me, and even if we're talking to each other and nobody else knows, you could probably even talk pretty sharp to me because we've developed some respect along the way.
Well, so you're going to tell me, because we've done all these podcasts and a lot of coaches, we've talked to a lot of coaches about how to be successful in coaching, and I ain't gonna lie to you, Mike. About everything comes back to relationships, and
I agree.
You keep on saying that. And God forbid that a coach and a ref have a relationship, but you still have to have one. It's a relationship and mutual respect, and then you can coexist during that 40-minute, or in high school a 32-minute game, because that's all you're trying to do is coexist while you're out there. We can hug and love each other later on, but you're right. You got a conflict before the game even starts, and that's a good way to put it.
Well, you kind of do. You just got a natural conflict, I think, and then again, it makes it even harder than that. Like I say, you're charged with providing a fair playing field, and I got to tell you, some nights it's not fair. I'll tell you why, because you may have 5 of the greatest athletes in the world that are 6'6", 6'8", maybe a 7-footer, and they're super fast and they're super strong, and you may be playing some guy on the other end who's got 5 guys that are slow. They're not very strong. So I've told the coach before. He said, Mike, you got to be consistent. I said, how? He's got those and you got these. As far as players, what I can't make this. I can't make this.
You can't make it fair.
I
could have taken. I mean, we played Anthony Davis.
It wasn't fair when we threw it up. You know what I mean?
Listen, I should have yelled down there at Cal. Let me have Anthony Davis, and then we'll even that bad boy up.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it was.
Unfortunately, it's not fair before we start sometimes.
No, he wasn't quite in the mood to do that. But you're saying for young coaches and coaches, try to develop a relationship with these officials. We don't have to be buddies and go out to eat after the game, because that's probably not going to happen. But just handle people with respect. And
respect goes a long way. And and once you establish that respect and you can communicate, then I think we can do that, and maybe that communication can even be a little more intense once we establish that mutual respect than it would when we don't really know each other.
Well, let me ask you this. Me and you were talking, I'm blasting you, you're blasting me, but we're standing right beside each other and no one knows. All right. Now, you're across the court. And I don't think you all like officials yelling at you from across the court. Correct or incorrect?
That's correct. That's correct. The best conversation is between the coach and the official, in kind of close confines, but where nobody gets embarrassed. Okay.
And I think that's a good word.
Exactly.
Don't embarrass me. Don't
likes
embarrass
that.
me. Everybody used to get I'd have officials say, "Listen, you put your hands down. Do not do anything with your arms.
Exactly.
Just talk to me. Talk to me, but put your hands down." I'm assuming if I start doing hand gestures and all that stuff as a young coach or a coach period, officials really don't like that.
It's a general rule. We'd prefer not, but a lot of people talk with their hands. I talk with my hands sometimes, but it's jumping up and down and the arms up in the air and spread out and showing, and demonstrating the play and so on. That's probably better left out, and I think we can communicate better without that. But again, it's a loud place, and so coaches sometimes feel like they have to yell across the floor, and officials are on the other side of the floor. We've gone through many changes over the years about where we want the calling official to go.
Yeah.
Do we want the calling official to come table side and report the foul and be right there by the coach? So maybe he can answer a question, or we can.
But right now you're getting away from them, correct?
Now they got So that goes full circle. I think it depends on who's in charge. But again, by and large, you got coaches that college coaches are professionals. That's their job. That's their livelihood. Okay, it's a vocation for them. Basketball officials, by and large, it's an avocation. It's a second job. But it's something they take very serious. But I think over the years they've decided maybe that head coach, especially those high profile coaches, and are probably better equipped to win that discussion or come out with the upper hand on that discussion than the officials. So maybe they say it's best that we try to eliminate that contact and move that official away from him. And maybe he can circle back around a little bit later, and and maybe say a word or something here and there. But right now, I think the school of thought is we make the call and we get to the other side of the floor.
Well, I would say to young coaches out here listening to this, establish a relationship. They got a job to do too. Officials got a job. You got a job to do. Kevin Eastman talked about when an official got in DeAndre Jordan's head Jordan with the Clippers, Jordan would go, he couldn't play anymore. And all the coaches would do is say, listen, he is owning you. That official right now is owning you. And so don't let him own you. You know, as coaches, you get so wrapped up with the officials, you forget to coach. And so young coaches, let the officials officiate, talk to them, communicate like they're a normal, respectful human, and then get out of there, because you're not going to change. I remember telling teams, listen, if we're not going to get any calls at the bucket tonight, let's go just score the ball. And if they blow the whistle, then we get an and one. If they don't, we're at least going to get two out of it. Let's quit whining. Let's quit complaining. Quit being soft and being big babies. And let's just go so much better. They have nothing to do with the game. How about that?
Exactly. I agreed. You know, you got in the greatest thing, and that I kind of even picked up is a lot of the coaches, and they'd have a bad play or a turnover, etc., and everybody's kind of looking around and so on, and the coach says, next play.
Yeah.
I said, that's the only option we got. That's over. Next play. So we move forward. So,
well, I haven't seen an official. I haven't. You made a bad call against me one time. I went and blasted you. I never saw you change the call. Oh, you're right. You're right, Coach. My fault. That wasn't a foul. I'm going to change my. I've never seen that happen in college basketball.
No, it is. It happens fast, and you call it fast, and we live with it, and we move on. And all we can do is the next play.
Yeah, the good coaches go to the next play, and don't let the officials own you, coaches and players. Let them do their job. Don't let them get in your head so you can't coach and you can't play, because that's called you get owned, and you cannot do that. You got to move on, and you got to show respect for everybody, and you got same thing with players. Correct, Michael?
Exactly. I mean, get on to the.
Yeah,
got to get on to the next play.
Tell me, a kid acts like a jerk. Like I officiated. I've done enough team camps and summer camps. I ain't gonna lie to you, Michael. If a kid acts like a jerk to me, I will promise you he'll be holding away from the ball, and he'll just picked up his second and his third foul. But I'm also not an official. I got emotions. But last time I checked, Michael, you have emotions too, and I don't know. A kid acts like a jerk to you. Do you watch them a little bit closer? I know you're not supposed to, but do you, human nature, do you do it?
Well, I think everybody has emotions, and everybody's human, and I don't know. I'd like to operate off the idea that the good people and the people doing things right, whether it's basketball or banking or whatever they're doing, come out on top. If they're doing it the right way, they come out on top, and it's not the guys that are not doing it right.
Yeah.
So you'd like to think that, but you again, everybody's human, everybody has emotions, and it's hard for if somebody's acting up, if somebody's talking to you inappropriately, I think it's a natural response. It's probably hard to think of that person in the same light as the guy that's saying yes sir and no sir and thank you and could I ask you a question, as opposed to I used to get tickled. I'd be standing there and guy come over. He said, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." But then he'd tell me something. I said, and I just kind of look at him. He'd say, "Well, you're not going to." I said, "I'm still waiting on the question." I said, "I've got your opinion." I said, "But I'm still waiting on the question." And many times he'd kind of scratch. That was kind of over at that point, because he, maybe he realized. He said, "I really didn't have a question. I just wanted to make my opinion known." I said, "Well, we've got that out of the way, but you think of that question, come on back by."
Well, how many games you think in your career, Division I, did you officiate?
Oh, wow.
How many games you officiate a year? Because I think, just be honest, I think I talked to a pretty high-level Division I head coach this morning. I said, listen, I know you're fatigued. I know your team's fatigued. Back off of practice and do. How do officials not get so fatigued late?
Well, I think officials do get tired. Travel's hard. I can tell you that of late, with kind of the combination of leagues a little bit, for example, the power conferences maybe has some but 1AA leagues associated, or some lower level, maybe that may be the poor choice of words, but let me give you an example. I think the ACC is associated with the Atlantic 10, the Colonial, the Big South. All those leagues kind of fall together. Okay, so the neat thing about college basketball, but from an official standpoint, is they play almost every night. Okay, it's not like football. They play on Saturday. Officials work one game a week. That's their only option. Officials in basketball can work multiple nights, but which is good for them. But the good thing about it is, with the association with the other leagues, and the supervisors / assigners do a good job of trying to coordinate that travel where it's not too bad every day. You might be able to wake up in the same city for 3 days and work 3 games. For example, in the Big 12, you might be at Iowa State one night, you might be at Drake the next night, and you may be at Northern Iowa the next night, all in a hour 45-minute radius. And so you're resting. You're not having to get up at 4 o'clock and catch an airplane and worry about the weather and this and that. So you're in one area. So by the association of these multiple leagues and multiple teams, and the supervisors, some of them do a good job of working together when they make those schedules to ensure that official's maybe in one place and getting his rest, as opposed to zigzagging from Syracuse to Miami to Kansas and back to Raleigh, North Carolina, in 4 days, which is very tiring. It is tiring. So
and remember this: don't ever do 2 games in the same day.
No, that's probably not very good. I've never done that, but it's happened.
I know. I had a buddy do 2. It didn't work out. It didn't quite work out for him because that TV can pick you up at both places, or the internet, or whatever. It's just not real good. So don't do that, Michael. When you get back in officiating, don't do that.
Everything's on TV, and trust me, there's no secrets anymore, is it?
No, not a bit. Michael, I just want to tell you thank you so much for your time, and young coaches, and this podcast is always try to help. I would tell you this is for fans out there. We're in Chattanooga, Michael, and we're having a really tough time. There is a shortage of basketball officials. There is a shortage of I went to my little boy's baseball meeting yesterday, baseball umpire. Nobody wants to officiate anymore because the fans are nuts. And the money's not good enough to counteract the fans being nuts. And
gotcha.
So, I mean, I'm assuming you've faced that multiple times.
I don't think there's any doubt. I think that's a major problem. And my opinion is, nobody cares much about my opinion because I've expressed it. But as you notice, the fans keep getting closer and closer to the floor, and we got places where the fans are sitting right on the floor. We got feet against feet, and the intensity is such that people feel that intensity. I used to, when my kids were playing sports, I was told people, I said, the best place for me is in center field.
Yeah.
Okay, because the closer I get to the action, the more I feel the intensity, and maybe become more apt to get involved in some way.
And say something stupid.
Yeah, and it's your kids. You can do it. Anybody can do it. But you know what? If I'm sitting in center field, out beside, I can still see, and I don't feel that. But I don't know. It's a crazy world at times, and it's amazing what people will say. I don't know. I guess I feel like that they come to the game, if they got enough money, they can sit right by the floor and I don't know, maybe they got a lot on them. Maybe it's a chance for them to unload. But I'm not sure just because the guy's got on a black and white striped shirt that he's supposed to be the guy that gets unloaded on. I'm good for cheering with the team. I'm good at yelling at the referee, but when it gets personal, how much money makes that okay? I don't know. I don't know. I know the schools have to have money to operate. I know it's a big part of the budget, but where do you draw the line?
Some people, I'm telling you, because I'm in the stands for the first time this year in forever, and I'm telling you, some people just come to yell at the refs. Some people are so angry with their life, they just, they can't help it. And what I did, as a coach, 40-minute game. Listen, I'm gonna go compete for 40, and you got to do what you got to do for 40. And listen, don't take offense to anything I said, but 40 minutes, we're gonna go at it. And then after that 40 minutes, if you want to go, I treat you to a sandwich. I appreciate it. I apologize. I love you. I'll see you next stop. No big deal.
You got to let it go and start new.
Yeah, and that's what you had to do. But those relationships with the official, that's what I don't think fans understand. Listen, the relationship between an official and a coach and even players are so important and so vital for the game that if there's not mutual respect, so young coaches, dadgum, respect those officials. They're not out to get you. You may think one's out to get you. As soon as the game's over, he's going to Sonic and getting him a hot dog, and he ain't paying any attention to you anymore. Last question I got for you before we end this thing.
Yes, sir.
You blow a call. Like if I didn't play an end of the game situation right, it would stay with me for a while. We should have got the ball into his hands instead of flat ball screen. Why didn't we play zone? We should have played man. We should have done this. We should have done that. If you blow a call and you kind of feel like you blow a call, you go back on tape and you blow a call. Does that stay with you? When do you get rid of it? How do you deal with the criticism and all that? If because you're going to blow a call. A coach is going to blow a call. Players are going to miss a shot and miss a free throw. It happens to all of us. Tell me if the officials' view.
Absolutely, it's the most sickening feeling in the world. I mean, and here's the deal: if it happens in the first 5 minutes, you don't feel good about it because
But it ain't no big deal.
We start with the goal to get them all right. I want to get them all right. I used to tell them, I said, I don't really want to get them all right for you. I want to get them all right for me.
Yep.
I said, but you're going to benefit from that. Okay. So I'm trying to do my best to get them all right. But if I miss it in the first 5 minutes, if I miss it in the first half, you got tons of time to recover. There's a lot of plays coming and a lot of things that can happen. If I miss the last play of the game, I'll put you at a pretty distinct disadvantage because you got no recovery time. So one thing we always talked about is we got to be good. We got to be perfect the last 5 minutes. Okay, we're trying to be perfect 40 minutes, but we darn sure got to be perfect the last 5 minutes because the team's got no recovery time. So if you miss a play in that last 5 minutes, if you miss a play in the last 30 seconds, it's a sickening feeling. It really is because many times you work so hard and you've had a great game, and 39 minutes worth of the best work in the world, turns to poo on the last call or with 30 seconds to go, and it's a sickening feeling. But life goes on. You ain't happy about it. You ain't proud of it. You learn from it, and you got to move on. But you'll remember it. Let me tell you, it's been 29 years. I still remember 3 or 4 of them today.
Well, that's because you're good. That's why you were good, and you were good because you cared, and you cared about the game, and you cared about coaches and players, and you wanted to do what's right with the game. And that's why we had you on this morning, young man.
Well, you're the best.
Well,
you're one of the good guys. You always were. You was a little crazy at times, but you were good. You were good at letting it go. And the next time we saw you, it was a new day, and it was a new day and a new game, and everybody's giving their best. And you were always good at that and fair. And you know what? Most coaches are.
Well, I would tell you what we thought of you. when we had, there were certain games that you said the coaches got to know the officials. You got to know the officials. You got to know who you can talk to, who you do. When you walked in the building, this is BB before Brett. When you walked in the building and we saw you and your crew coming, I would look at my coaches and say this, hey, guys, we can coach tonight. Don't say nothing to the officials. We can coach tonight. We're good. Because there's certain guys that walk in that building when you're officiating. Well, you don't have to worry about that. And it brought great calmness to me to see you out there because you can coach and you don't have to worry about the officials.
Well, that's the ultimate compliment, I think, for any official is that when I've had some of the most high profile coaches say, hey, so glad I'm on the road and it's a hostile environment. I'm glad you're here tonight. Most of the time I'd say yeah, right, but that's the ultimate compliment is that the coach has a comfort level that you're going to take care of the game and you're going to work hard and you're going to put forth your best effort and you're not going to be right every time. But guess what? Players are going to miss some shots. Coaches are probably going to call the wrong defense from time to time.
Never.
Things are going to happen.
That would never happen.
It's I think you can almost say a lot of times that all sports it's a game of great plays, but it's also a game of errors.
It is a game of errors and imperfections.
And the team that makes the less amount of errors, most of the time wins the game. I tell you, I know you're ready to close, but I tell you another great one. This always drove me crazy. Is I'd have a lot of times I'd go in somewhere and I'd have a coach say, "Hey, Mike, we lost the last 6 games you refereed." And I kind of look at him. I said, "Coach wasn't really keeping up with that." I said, "Really?" I said, "You lost the last 6 games I've refereed?" "Yeah." They said, "What's the problem?" I said, "I don't know. You tell me. Is it my shooting, defense, turnovers? What am I doing wrong?"
There you go.
That didn't go. That never went over too good. But that's Of course, I'd kind of do that with a smile. But so golly days, says the law of averages is bound to take over sooner or later here. But I'm sure you'll win one. But like you went back to the coaches being paranoid. They know that stuff.
Well, that's because it's like you said, and that's the best probably thing. There's a conflict before the game starts.
A natural conflict,
and it's not mean. You don't mean it but everybody's on a different page. See, you're on as a coach, I'm on a different page as the other coach.
Exactly.
And so there's a conflict between us, and now y'all are out there officiating the daggum game, and you're not officiating exactly how I want it. Now it's a major league conflict because I want it done like this, and that's why it's a. That's why and I tell people this, somebody be yelling at an official at a high school game. We're very lucky to have them out there because if those officials aren't out there, we ain't playing this game.
Exactly. I hear ads on the radio for high school football officials.
They can't get them, Mike.
In the morning. Have you heard those? They are actually putting ads on the radio begging people to come officiate high school football, and I don't know. I think they pay $90, close to $100, for a Friday night game.
But I think you make a good point. Move the crowds back. And it takes some of the emotion out of it. Because if I'm yelling at you from a final, if I go to the Final Four and I can't even see the court, and you make a bad call, and dadgum, you calling a 3-second, are you kidding? Well. If I'm sitting in the top tier, I ain't yelling at you because number one, I know you can't hear me. The only reason I'm yelling at you early is I think you can hear me, and I may say boo. Well, you can't hear me from section 728 up there in the daggum Alamo Dome, or and so move people back and let the officials do their thing, let the players do their thing. The fans are part of it, but I think you make a good point. Michael?
I think the fans are a great part of it. You know what?
But they're on they're part of the conflict too. Everybody's in conflict at a daggum game.
They're just seeing one color, okay, and that's okay. That's a great part of the game. You talked about us trying to the replays and this and that, and us trying to make the game perfect. I'm not sure we want the game perfect. If the game's perfect, what are we going to talk about on Monday morning at the coffee shop, and or Monday at lunch or Tuesday, or what are we going to talk about? Boy, we had a perfect game the other night. The team with the best, they won, and we had no conflicts. Except nobody's going to be happy.
Well, I mean,
sometimes being unhappy is being happy.
If you go to the monitor in the Saints Rams game, and the Saints get the interference call, then the Rams are mad because he had to go to the monitor. That's not the game. The game's about imperfect. So someone's always the team is strange. If you don't have as many points as the other team at the end of the game, you're gonna find something.
Every time.
And you're the easiest target. You're the easiest target out there. I'd rather blame you than blame my guys.
Exactly. Well, that's okay. Nobody likes to lose. Nobody likes to be the reason. And you know what? That goes for the guys in the stripes too. I'm for getting rid of the stripes myself. I think it's an irritant. I mentioned a grand gentleman, John Guthrie, who gave me a tremendous opportunity once. He was so far ahead of his time in refereeing that it wasn't even funny. He matter of fact, if you remember, we went away from the stripes for a couple of years.
I remember that.
That was his idea, and I don't know. I just the stripes just seem to kind of stick out, and the NBA's gone away from them, and most other sports I think a lot of other sports have gone away from them. I'm not sure it's not time that we don't make that change, and we'll get us some nice light gray shirts and kind of calming and maybe blend in a little better.
I think if you went with black pants, black shirt, I think you and Gary Maxwell would look really good because black is slimming.
Hey, listen, now, you said this wasn't going to get personal.
Hey, listen, I love you. I appreciate you. I appreciate your insight on the other side, and that's what we wanted, insight from your point of view, and that's what we got, and I just really appreciate your time this morning.
Always good to talk to you. You call anytime.
All right,
You're
thanks so much, man. Take care. I appreciate it.
Have a great week.
All right.
See you. Bye-bye.